hot change and a hot tag here. Oh, look at this. Where are you, Nico? Where is that?
Hey, what's going on, John? SDH family. We are downstairs just
Ah,
to make sure that we stay away from those sleeping bodies upstairs. Give them a little bit of space between my voice and their sleep because we
yeah.
were up late last night. So I'm sure they'll be sleeping. We ended up watching the new Avatar movie, and the 3 hours put us into midnight. So we're up late last night for sure.
Yeah, and I saw your notes about the holidays and everything, and yeah, make sure that everybody knows this time of year that you love them, and that was a timely message in more ways than one. Let everybody know you love them. Don't ever be afraid to tell everyone. No holding back. This is not the time for guys like of certain ages and vintages and upbringings to sit there and go, I'm not going to tell you how I feel. I'm not going to tell you this. I'm not going to tell you that. Biggest thing is you got to let everybody know when you know, and don't ever sit there and be afraid, because one of the things that has, and this is probably more post Christmas before we get into Major League Soccer and all the movement. Uh, your reminder yesterday on the 280 character app about making sure that you tell folks you love them. That to me, it resonates, and I make every opportunity with all of the folks that are close, whether it's blood or otherwise. You know how we wrap up every conversation that we have is that I tell you that I love you very much. I tell Nino that I love him very much. I tell everybody up here very much. And I'm not blowing smoke because I'm look, we've been at this, we've been in this business too blank and long. And you never know what's going on. And so you got to be upfront with folks. Don't ever be afraid to hide what you're thinking, because you never know when that chance to tell people what you're thinking ever comes back up. So I'm glad that you posted that yesterday on socials as a reminder. What was in the mug, by the way?
The mug is my first cup of coffee, actually, only, which is surprising. But I guess it is the holidays, so I was a little, not necessarily up early enough. But I did, make sure that my voice was nice and ready before I got on the show.
Mhm.
Uh, but yeah, I mean, let's start there. I mean, SDH family knows me for a long time. We get into the subjects that matter and people want to know about, which is the soccer aspect. Necessarily in my inner circle, but indirectly, I've heard stories and some unfortunate ones. And all I will say is that it's not just about telling everyone that you love them, because it is an opportunity you may not have. But in the same sense, in one way, not being afraid of showing love.
Mhm.
But if you are not being shown love, then have that inner voice and get it out, express it to those around you, because the holidays are phenomenal and they're such a great time for most of us, a lot of us.
Mhm.
But that percentage that isn't going through good times and they're isolated, they're lonely. Loneliness is a scary thing, and loneliness can lead to some bad decisions. And that's what indirectly I found some stories, through just people closer to other family members that have not had good decisions and have taken their own lives and things like that. And this is just recent, just days. So I threw that message out there because if there's someone in your life that is showing isolation, is showing sadness, and in this time of the year, sharing that love, as I mentioned in that message, is important. And it's just about a conversation, a hello, come over for dinner, let's talk sports or not, let's talk chocolate and bacon. I mean, it doesn't matter. It is just about having a voice out there that
Mhm.
says I care, and that's important.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that you never know, you never know how someone is feeling. So don't ever be afraid, even just in casual conversation, to sit there and go, how you doing? Even if they tell you they're fine, always ask. Even if they tell you they're fine, even if that couldn't be farther from the truth. The fact that you're asking, the fact that you're invested, the fact that you want to know how this person is doing, hopefully it resonates with them when it comes to not just this time of year, but all the time. And like I said when you came in, it's like, look, I always tell you I love you. And that is not something that I'm hiding anymore. And it has taken me about 80% of my to get to that point to where in this 20% where I am right now, don't be afraid to tell anybody anything. Don't be afraid to ask. Doesn't matter if it's a crappy day in March, doesn't matter if it's a sunny day in June, doesn't matter if it's a holiday that you're attached to. It never hurts to invest in someone else for a bit. And it's something as simple as checking in. It's something as simple as a text message, something as simple as sitting there and giving them a call, something as simple as a written note or an email. How you doing today? Heard about this? What the heck's going on? Let me know, reach out when you want to reach out. I'm here. It took me the longest time to understand the importance of that. And I am not letting that go. Now that that light has come on, I'm not letting that go. And I know that some folks, they may not necessarily be comfortable in the same kind of an equal response, but that doesn't affect me in any way. It doesn't make me love them any less if they don't respond with the same thing that I tell them. It doesn't mean that I love them any less.
And friendship's a beautiful thing, man. Friendship is something that doesn't need, like you and I both, man. You know, I love you, and we've never really met each other. We've never had a drink face to face, but all you need when it comes to friendship is a conversation, and it is having a relationship, or you could start a relationship, and it's always, my DMs are always open. I've said that consistently, and there's been two times, in the span of my career doing this, of someone reaching out and saying, "Look, hey, I'm having a tough time. I just went through a breakup, and this is what's going on." I had somebody reached out and say, "Hey, I just lost my dad, and I, just don't feel well." And I've given my phone number. Hey, you know what? Give me a call. Just if you want to talk, you know. And in one of those occasions, that person did call. So the friendship is a thing that can ignite from anybody, and you got to cherish it. And like you said, you can't be afraid to say, I love you, I care, and uh, like you bring up a good point. It doesn't have to be just now.
Yeah.
It's just that it resonates at the moment, but that's 24/7. All year long. Always have that in your back pocket, and know that people are always going to need somebody else. And if you yourself need somebody else, reach out.
Mhm. You wanna talk soccer for a change?
Yeah, man. No, let's do it. Hey, you know what? It's
I know.
it's the holidays. We're off. We're on vacation. There is, MLS news that are out there for sure. But from time to time, it's good to talk about things that matter more, and,
Mm,
and that's the reality of it. We might think that soccer is everything, and somebody getting the guy that they've been looking for in free agency might be the biggest piece of news that they want to know about. But someone out there might, be listening and be touched. So that's good enough for me.
yep. Okay, so let's start with the keeper carousel and where things have kind of circled their way through. We start with, Dane St. Clair. Dane St. Clair decides that he's not gonna re-up in Minnesota. Minnesota apparently was offering him a boatload of money. He goes to Messi and Friends. Messi and Friends, before they brought in DSC, and I imagine this was a part of that dynamic, they do not renew the loan on Rocco Rios Novo. And you got a lot of folks here in this particular footprint who are hot about that. It's like, you bring in Rocco. Rocco proves himself to be further than along than Oscar Ustari, Ustari has that one match. I want to say it was gives up like 17 goals, and Mascherano has had it. He makes the switch, goes from Ustari to Rocco Rios Novo. Rocco rides it to a title. Then they don't renew the loan. Then they bring in DSC, and so now it looks like it's going to be DSC and Ustari in Miami. So then that creates an opportunity for Minnesota to try and find somebody else. It looks like it's going to be Drake Callender, who was with Messi and friends as a part of their 4 keepers at one point, because it was Ustari, Rocco, William Yarborough, who they brought in, and Yarborough sat there for the entire season that he was brought in. I think he might have gotten 1 cup appearance. And Drake Callender, before Callender was shipped to Charlotte to possibly be the new number 1 behind Christian Kalina, because there were questions as to whether or not Kalina was going to be staying in Charlotte, or with the things that he was posting cryptically on social media, if I remember correctly, he was thinking about leaving and going back. And so then Charlotte decides they're looking to move Callender. So Callender looks like he might be going now to Minnesota. And now Sean Johnson, who was rumored to be heading to a bunch of different places, after he leaves Toronto, goes to DC, of all places. This is a GK Union carousel that has been unparalleled in the last week.
And I'll add one more to you. It is the Carlos Coronel saga that we
Yes!
thought was going to go to Orlando, and now reportedly that isn't really happening. So it does remind us of something, is that as much as reportedly right now St. Clair has made the decision and he's ready to go with Messi and friends, and he makes a whole ton of sense from his standpoint, and it sucks dearly for Minnesota, and they're making moves to replace him. Nothing's done until it gets done. And so, passing on $1 million, might seem easy for us just reading the story, but when you're counting there your bills and you're staking out your wallet, things might differ. But if everything stays as is, the Dane St. Clair move to Inter Miami puts them at the top of the food chain, if you will. I mean, they simply get their guy, they get the best available goalkeeper, and it just moves on from there. I thought the calendar move was a savvy one. I think that we forget at times how maybe Calendar might not be a guy that was flashy, but he was very effective at one point, and he was a good goalkeeper, and he's a great shot stopper. And yes, he struggled at times getting out of the back and things like that. But when you look at free agency, I'd rather have a guy like Calendar than even a guy like Sean Johnson. No disrespect to Sean, although DC, I feel like it is a good spot for him, and goalkeepers, you got to treat him differently. Those miles go different, so his age might not be as much of a factor as when it comes to other positions. And look, he was good. Sean Johnson is maybe not the guy that was in New York City FC, but he's still a guy that has the veteran presence, that has a great frame, that to me demands and commands respect as soon as he gets into a locker room. And he is a hard-nosed type of goalkeeper. So when it comes to this carousel, although you might see Inter Miami as the top winner and as the team that maybe is the rich getting richer, and they ends up beating everybody to that phenomenal get of St. Clair, I think that after that, just recouping and getting Calendar, it's a good move. I think that goes second. Sean Johnson to DC United. DC United is an interesting team right now that is getting some of those experienced MLS players, and they're going that route, right? The type of Rebos, who maybe not just experienced, but a proven forward is an important move for him. That's a move that with Sean Johnson, I think, will give you plenty to talk about. And then the Carlos Coronel saga. As far as I know, he is looking from the outside going in when it comes to MLS. He definitely wants to go to Brazil. There's actually other options exploring for him in South America. And I think that he does want to maybe take that route, that move towards leaving MLS.
Well, and you mentioned the keepers, and you mentioned DC, and so DC, for some reason, I don't know where they found it, but apparently they've decided to start spending money, and they're doing it down the spine. You've got Sean Nealis, and then you've got Sean Johnson. And so this is this strange thing that DC United is doing is they're working down the middle. They're working down the spine to try to figure things out. Obviously, there's a lot more to figure out, but at least you're seeing those initial steps of working down the spine to try to solidify things for 26 and beyond.
And they're going a different route. They aren't going out there and getting the big name right off the bat. You know, they're filling up some important holes. I thought that Sean Neals was a really good one as well, right? He is a guy that's going to solidify a horrendous defense for New York City, and he brings character and culture, which is something that DC has lacked for as long as I can remember. They haven't had a guy that's going to go in there and set the tempo. Can Sean Neals be that guy? You know, coming from a good organization, sure, certainly he can do that. So, regardless of everyone being focused more on the Benteke replacement, and I do mean replacement more by name than by statistics, because clearly Tyberi was a guy that can put it in the back of the net. But I get fans being more ready and waiting for that big name to drop. Who is the guy that they're going to bring in? Is it going to be someone that has the same type of trajectory? I just don't know if that's what they need. I think DC United is doing the right thing by filling in the gaps with some really proven players and trying to raise the floor. DC United, their floor is so low, it's dead in the basement. You gotta build that foundation, and I feel like DC United is going, and I feel like that's where they're getting it right.
Yep, and so obviously we got to keep an eye on what we're seeing out of DC as a part of the keeper carousel in general. You look at Messi and friends. It looks like Lo Celso might be the next one who is coming in. That would be one of the additions that you're staring at with the departures of most of the Gulfstream Galacticos. Yes, DePaul, I believe, now goes to DP status. Luis Suarez comes in for one more year. Jordi Alba retires. Busquets retires. And so now it's Messi, it is Suarez, it is DePaul, and it might be Lo Celso that would be added to this mix of the young players that you know they got to hang on to if they're going to chase after back-to-back.
Yeah, Miami, the Celso thing, it does have legs. It does have legs. But within Miami, we got to be careful, people. Because anybody who's anybody is being linked to Inter Miami. That's just agents doing their job on one end. That is media members at times trying to clickbait you into things. So it is a fluid concept. The reality, though, is that Inter Miami is clearly making moves. They're clearly talking to people and having the Messi effect, making you the most attractive course in MLS. They're getting the pick of the litter, right? I mean, they are literally just going through and figuring out who it is that they want to get. So Inter Miami, if anything, with ambition and funds, they're going to be interesting to watch. But this also, you know, he is a player that in the midfield, I feel like he could fit. He definitely goes into the Messi and friends type of situation where there is a connection, there is a relationship. But DePaul is the guy that is going to have to be figured out where he plays best. Without Sergio Busquets this year, I don't know. Can DePaul play a little bit deeper? Do you want him playing deeper? Do you want him a little bit wider? Is he going to play more as an inside guy and you allow your wingbacks to give you all of your width, but at times maybe DePaul is playing a little bit higher up the field, where I don't know if he was necessarily impressive there last season, right? When Miami was at their best, it was when having some of these young guys like Silvetti out wide and getting into certain positions. So where does DePaul fit? I feel like is part of the big questions for Inter Miami, getting him to be more effective, more influential. So aside of all these moves coming in, and I'm not huge on touching every single rumor because, again, that comes from a ton of different places. When there's something more solidified, we can talk about it. But regardless of every single one of these rumors that are tapping in, and you're starting to see, to me, the younger players is where they're really going. I feel like that's where Javier Mascherano is going to want to make his stamp with Inter Miami, is getting some of these younger guys, getting this team younger in all ways and senses, right? Regardless of them getting Luis Suarez back or not, he's clearly not going to be a guy that they're going to be leaning on for 30 games in 2026, or at least starting any of those 30 games. Maybe he does come in 30 games, but he is coming in the second half. He's giving you different things. But to me, Inter Miami's biggest objective is just getting that roster to be younger.
Yep. And speaking of younger, Orlando City this morning, before we came into hour number 2, acquired Luis Otavio from Internacional of Serie A
Good
in
move.
Brazil, via U22. So U22 through 27-28, club option for 28-29, pending receipt, obviously, the P1 visa and his ITC. 18 years old, quote from Ricardo Moreira this morning, joined Internacional in October of 24, professional later, 47 appearances, and has 1 goal between the first team and the U20s. And so you have Orlando City signing Luis Otavio from Internacional as a U22. They signed Tyrese Spicer to a new deal. And then they brought in Thiago Sosa, also from Brazil. So you see where Orlando, and they bring Sosa in from Bahia in Serie A in Brazil. So you're seeing where Orlando's gravitating right now. Obviously, they're gravitating younger. And once again, it's another U22 for Orlando through 27-28, club option 28-29. So like what we saw with Otavio, we're getting with Thiago Sosa, and comes through Bahia's youth academy, and it's acquired straight up as a U22. So you're looking at Orlando City, the purple team, getting younger, and they're going to South America to do it.
And they're giving some players depth there. I think that Otavio move is interesting because it feels like Atuesta and Cartagena will be the starters. So this guy gets to develop, and he has a huge high ceiling. I talked to a talent scout that is so high on Otavio being a future in this league, and using MLS as he was already in Europe, right? He was already there, but there's a different ways when you are in Europe, kind of in the back of the kitchen, if you will, rather than on the front. And that's what MLS can do for this guy, is giving him some real minutes, making him a player that is going to be able to, at one point later down the road, maybe it is next year, really breaking in and having that breakthrough year that everybody's waiting for. And then you can get back on the scene in Europe more of as a protagonist than a guy coming in directly to make an impact on the team. And for me, Orlando City sees the benefit of, look, MLS is becoming a showcase in the world, and maybe could bring in a guy that's going to help us out. We could win in at the very end. Becoming a selling league is not something that is in everybody's top objectives in being a selling team, but I think Orlando sees a potential where a couple of these guys can come in, be just gems in the rough or diamonds in the rough. You could polish them real well, sell them out there, and you become a new systematic team with MLS that can get guys out there. And that can help you record more players. You know, we've talked about Inter Miami and how quickly and how easy it is for them to get people. If Orlando City can continue to do this, I think Moreira has a really good plan about how to get this team globally recognized as someone that can be a stepping stone for a lot of young talent.
Okay, a couple of other transactions and thoughts before I'll give you dealer's choice. You can talk about whichever ones you want to get into. There's a talk that Justin Hack might be heading to LAG. Brooklyn Reigns moves from Houston to New England for up to $2 million, which I thought was a big deal. So the 20-year-old, Houston gets 1.6 guaranteed and an additional $400,000 if certain conditions are met. Signed a U22 deal with New England through 28-29 with a club option for 29-30. So Brooklyn Reigns moves over as he was part of the 22 under 22. Then you've also got Dante Seeley from Colorado. Colorado making a lot of sneaky moves in the offseason, getting Dante Seeley from Montreal. Austin gets Joseph Rosales from Minnesota United for one, and Minnesota's getting $1.5 million and a sell on. So there's a lot of little deals here. Teams, you sit there and go, okay, this one, this one, this one, and this one. There's a lot of interesting deals that are going on here for 7 figures and more inside the league when it comes to Garber Bucks.
Yeah, look. So let's start with LA Galaxy. I think Justin Hack is a great move by the Galaxy. I think that between Vanny and Coons, they're deciding that it is important to just shore down what was clearly a huge problem last season. Defensively, this team was beyond bad. And when you have a guy like Justin Hack that is as versatile, you can step into midfield, you could play center back, you could play 3 in the back. He would work perfectly in this system with what Greg Vanny wants to do. And he has a whole lot of potential, and he might not be the most exciting move because people continue to email me, and DM me and try to ask me who is the new 9 and the new striker for this team. And I tell them, look, this is what the LA Galaxy needs to do, is go out there and get this type of signings to shore the back. And Justin Hack is a guy that even the Sounders talked to prior to getting Hassani Dotson. Different for their system. I don't think he would work as well here. The Sounders, as much as they built out of the back with 3, they play very simply on the 4-2-3-1. And even when they don't, and there is variations to that formation, I don't think Justin necessarily fits in here. But the Sounders are a team that rate him very high. And I think that him going to the LA Galaxy does give him that opportunity to get in there and be a guy that's going to change the way that Vanny's system works from the back moving to the front. And he is going to be a guy that's going to help distribute. He's going to guy that's going to help tremendously on set pieces, both offensively and defensively. So I just think that is a phenomenal move. I expect a lot more from the LA Galaxy, at least with not maybe the huge move people are waiting for. There is a 9 that they're looking at, and I don't know if it's going to be what everyone expects, but between him and others that they're probably looking at, I don't think I have all the names. They are going to get, and they're going to figure that one out. But Austin, to me, has been the most. It's not the most active, and it's not the one that you consider as them winning as of right now, the off season.
Yeah.
But sometimes addition by subtraction can be a great tool for a team to get better. And I feel like they dig that. The fact that they were able to offload a DP spot, to say, look, we're going to cut loose a couple of $1 million here. We're going to take a hit, but we're going to get some money back. And now we're going to open a DP spot. We can do what Bukhari can do and have a guy like Jaden Nelson come in and give us the speed, the transition moments, some of the creativity, and we're getting it on a much lower number. And now we can go ahead and play around, whether it is getting another striker, trying to figure out whether that is something that we want to do. Maybe there's a deal for Brandon Vasquez that we don't know about, and maybe they can move on from there. But I feel like Austin FC is doing a great job at assessing what they have, getting rid of the dead weight, and making changes immediately. The Joseph Rosales move that you mentioned, to me, is underrated. Cash by transfer, using a resource that not a lot of MLS teams have the capability to use. But man, 25-year-old Honduran international, can play the midfield, can play the fullback position. He could play wingback. Clearly defensively sound. Man, I just feel like he's a great get. He's a guy that's going to be able to come in and help and give a lot of freedom to a guy like Austin Wolf. He is clearly taking over that maybe that Cascante role as well. So there is just so much get out of what Austin is doing when it comes to smart business that they're excited to see, and they're not done. They are absolutely not done. They're going to go out there and they're going to get themselves a DP that's going to give them that attacking component that they didn't have last season. Austin Wolf is just one guy, and although he had a breakthrough season, he looked lonely. He looked like he was doing everything on his own. So getting another guy that's gonna be a difference maker, that's not gonna be as unidimensional and as easy to defend as Bukhari was at times, because he had some great stuff going for him, but he seemed like he was just speed, get me into space, and that's about it. This Austin team getting a guy that could also play in those inside channels is going to be a huge get for this team. So for me, I'm really looking heavily at what Austin's going to be doing this season, because they seem to be just doing smart business.
And you mentioned that this is a straight cash homie deal. This is not like the Reigns deal where it's Garber bucks. And this is a deal. This is the intra franchise deal league, the intra league deal where you can sit there and open up the wallet and cut a check and not have it apply to Garber bucks. The Rosales deal is $1.5 million straight up cash and the sell on percentage. So Minnesota's getting a little money. Lord knows what they're going to do with it. They may just buy more buses and park them in a garage someplace, and that's about it. Or maybe get more quarter zip pullovers for Eric Ramsey and more white T-shirts. But I mean, this is a straight cash deal. And you mentioned Jaden Nelson. You got Joseph Rosales there. And the fact that they did get rid of Bukhari, all three of these things, if you look at them in a line, I think it's solid business. The fact that Bukhari came in underwhelmed. I mean, it was well below what you were anticipating from him. I mean, at one point, I think own goal was the second leading scorer in Austin at one point, and this was just as Brandon Vasquez had gotten injured. And so you were getting nothing from the other DP. The fact that you can move Bukhari, and you move him on, you bring in Jaden Nelson, you bring in Joseph Rosales, very, very sneaky stuff. And I agree with you there about what Austin is able to do with the one out. Yeah, you take a hit, but you bring in these two. Are there any other deals in the last week that have stood out? Any other stuff that you're hearing around the water cooler? Any other things that we need to keep an ear out for? Anything else going on?
There is something I'm working on, and it's for Atlanta. I'm hoping that it comes out. I'm hoping that it goes the right way. It's very early on, so that's why I'm not. But I am working on something. It's going to be interesting. I think that for Atlanta United, it is going to be about addition by subtraction. And I've been on the Marchik leaving since last season when I talked about the Pedro de la Vega possibility, and that obviously you needed to move on from one of your DPs. And Marinchuk, as much as he is a guy that ended up being a little more effective at the end of the day, I do feel like the front office sees him as a guy that they want to move away from. And if they could move away from him and bring in a couple of guys that are very interested in coming to Atlanta, I feel like those are going to be game changers for Atlanta United. So we'll wait to see where that goes. But I'm excited about a couple of the names that I'm hearing that could be possibilities for Atlanta United. But you do need to move on from one of your DPs. It's not going to be as easy as just bringing them on. But Atlanta has a huge debt to the fan base. And Chris Henderson, again, I would trust him with my team any day of the week. We know that Gart Lagerwey, for bigger reasons, would not be continuing with Atlanta. But I have all the faith in the world in Chris Henderson. He has the knowledge, the experience, the charisma, the connections, the networking. And I know that Atlanta fans probably are like, Nico, you talk very nicely of some people that haven't necessarily been as great. But I do think that he has all of the credentials to get Atlanta United off the rut. So I do expect a lot of moves for Atlanta United going into January. And there's going to be some outbound players, and there's going to be some really good players coming into Atlanta United. The Sam Surridge one is interesting. That the rumor that you kind of mentioned to me.
Yeah.
because as much as I do know that there's interest for Sam, I also know that Nashville is not necessarily loving what they could get out of him and how much it could cost to replace him.
Yeah.
Nashville isn't a team that just has blank checks either. I think that they do have a very limited capita going into that team. And moving on from Sam would mean that you got to replace that amount of goals, a guy that has been influential and a guy that has finally been able to figure out what it is to work with Mukhtar. And that is a huge component for Sam. And there's a huge component for what BJ Callahan wants to do. BJ finally gets this team where he wants it. Yes, in the playoffs, they were a bit of a dud. And believe me, they disappointed me the most. I thought that they were going to be able to work in and beat Miami. They didn't. So I do think that BJ Callahan wants to work with what he has. And although there is interest for Sam, I don't see him leaving unless there is a cannot refuse type of offer for him. And then we'll talk something else. But right now, I think that Sam will stay with Nashville.
Yeah, okay. And I like how you buried the lead there with Atlanta United, waiting until the end of the segment to sit there and discuss things with Atlanta United. We are of a mindset to let Chris Henderson cook. Here at SDH, we want Chris Henderson to cook. We want to see what he can do when he's in the kitchen. So we are intrigued, we are anticipating, and we are on the edge of not only our seat but your seat as well when it comes to what to anticipate with Chris. Okay. What is going on in the world of Pulso Sports and Sounder at Heart other than trying to figure out where you're going to put that pony that you got under the Christmas tree?
Yeah, we are kind of on cruise control right now. So we definitely have laid out all of the shows for the season so far here in Seattle. The only thing that's coming up is finally the official word from the team about Paul Rothrock. So we've talked about that pretty consistently. So it's going to finish off like this for 2026. We do have some remixes of shows and interesting things that we've gone throughout the year, both at YouTube in Pulso Sports and with Sandra Hart. We might get on Lobby's Coaches one more time to talk about the off season. But aside from there, we're going to wait it out till January, unless there's something that needs to be talked about. If there is a big move by one of the big teams here in the PNW, we don't expect a lot of movement there. I've been following Vancouver, but it's mainly about keeping their guys. I think that's what they're focusing on. Is we need to keep the core together. We need to make sure that we don't let go of certain guys. So there isn't really anything that I would expect. So for me, it's going to be cruise control. We're going to be reloading for 2026 season, but go ahead and obviously check us out. Follow us. I do have a end of year video that I always throw out through Pulso Sports, where I'll break down some things, talk about what's coming up for 2026. So go ahead and check that out on Pulso Sports.
Okay, so with Thursday being New Year's, do you want to do New Year's Eve day at 10:30 a.m. Eastern, or do you want to do Friday next week like we did this week?
When is New Year's? Thursday?
Yeah, Thursday's New Year's. Yeah. So it's the same situation next week as this week. Do you want to go before New Year's, or do you want to go Friday after New Year's? Do you want to go on the 2nd of January, or do you want to go on the last day of December on that Wednesday?
No, yeah, let's go on the 2nd.
Okay.
2nd for sure.
All right. So then the power hour is intact, and so for today it's going to be Nino Torres at 10. It's going to be our buddy Niko Moreno at 10:30 Eastern. Hopefully not having to hide there in a lower section of the house while everyone is trying to recover from Christmas and all of its trappings. As I always tell you, I love you very much, my friend. Thank you for going long this morning. I know we had a lot to talk about, a lot to catch up on a bunch of different levels. So just be safe. Have a great holiday. Enjoy the rest of this weekend, and we will catch up with you in the new year in 2026, and we will discuss next week. Why don't you grab the MLS? Why don't you grab the Niko Moreno High School Yearbook for Major League Soccer from 25, and we'll go through all of the awards. Most likely to succeed, homecoming king, homecoming queen, miscongeniality, those kinds of things. We'll talk about transactions, but we'll go through the yearbook and we'll see what the librarian said when she signed the yearbook. You've been a tremendous student. Thank you for bringing the books back on time every single time in the media center. We'll have fun like we always do.
I love that.
So we'll have fun at Niko Moreno High next weekend when it comes to Major League Soccer. Love you very much, my friend. Be safe. Enjoy your weekend. We will catch up with you next Friday as we go into 2026. Be safe. We'll see you soon, my friend.
Thank you, John. You the man. Love you guys. Have a happy New Year's, everyone. Enjoy it.